Welcome to the Harrison Boon podcast.
Live, okay. Noni Boon. Welcome to the Harrison Boon podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So, who is Noni Boon?
Who is Noni Boon? That's a huge question.
Huge question.
I wear many hats. Well, I suppose a wife, a mother, a horsewoman, counsellor, coach, a friend, a daughter. So many things.
It's always weird. It's such an on-the-spot question when someone says, "Tell me about yourself," and you're always like, "What the fuck do I say?" Like it's the
life story
moment, right? And you're like, "Do people want to hear, that I've, jumped off a cliff? Do people want to hear that?" I'm a romantic. Do people want to hear that I cry in old movies sometimes? You never know exactly what people are fishing for when they say tell us about yourself. And it's such a loaded question. But I guess I wanted to ask you about your growing up. For people that don't know, this is my mother, Noni. Growing up, I sort of saw you and Dad as having. You both had careers. You were both career people. Dad had a commercial construction business where he'd do sort of internal fit outs in office buildings, and my earliest memories of Dad was sort of going to work and watching him, put gyprock sheets up on walls and screw things together, and that was what I saw. That was the blueprint for me as a man. And then for you, watching you were a career woman first, and I sort of saw like a housewife second. I saw you got us ready for school. You took us to school. You then went home and did at different stages of your careers, but definitely like the ones I can remember where you come home and you do like 8 hours of graphic design and then pick us up from school, and then you do dinner, and like you were sort of the backbone of the household. So I saw Dad as like the no offense to that is, but like the breadwinner, like the main income earner, and then I saw you as like the backbone of the household. And I guess I got my ideas of what a healthy relationship dynamic were from watching traditional gender roles with my parents.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I always felt like I wanted to do something. I loved being a mum, but I wasn't a born mother in the sense that that's one of my really close archetypes. Like, I always try to explain it to people that women that are born mothers are the type of women that they foster kids, or they bake for the school fete. They're in the canteen 7 days a week.
I'm pretty sure you did school canteen.
I did, but I did.
Maybe you're a born mother.
I did.
If your metric for born mothers is school canteen, then
you banned me from school canteen.
Did I? Oh yeah, because all my guy friends used to tell me how hot my mum was, and it was so embarrassing, and the bullying got so bad that I was like, "Mum, it's probably best you just stay home."
Yeah.
But do you I've kind of blocked that memory out completely.
I still remember.
I only tell my therapist about it now.
Yeah.
But were you wearing provocative clothing to the school? Like, where did this come from?
No.
Were you flirting with the boys?
No.
Like, I don't know where this came from.
I think I was reasonably good looking when I was younger. I struggled.
It does not take much either for school kids to pick on other school kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I worked in the fitness industry, so I was always looked after myself, and I suppose I presented quite well. And
humble brag.
Yeah.
So let's move on. So that was your early career, and then now you are basically a life coach to people in need. You guide people. People come to you for guidance. What's the latest thing you've been doing?
I think everything that you do in life it's like following a path. It's a journey, and they're all stepping stones that lead you ultimately to probably what you're best at. So for me, I started.
Telling other people what's wrong with them.
Well, the interesting thing is you go into counselling thinking that you've got your shit together and you're going to be so good at giving people advice, and then you realise that it's 3 years on working on all your shit because you're actually like in a really
most counsellors
you've got
are probably
so
the most
much
broken
work to do
people,
on yourself
right?
initially, and then
Yeah.
I think if they do the work, then they go out and they're then a clear vessel. But if they
Right.
don't do the work, then they just spend their time projecting. Like I can remember girlfriends coming to me saying, "Oh, I went to a counsellor and she ended up flipping it, and it was an hour of her telling me her problems."
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's like
I couldn't think
you're
of
not
anything more
supposed to disclose really
like
anything about
personal
yourself.
details.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of what it is to be a good counsellor. But so for me, I started when I was a young girl. I was 18, worked in the fitness industry, which is where I met your dad in the gym, and I worked in advertising. So that was my thing. And then unplanned, you came into our world, which was the best thing that ever happened to us.
You met Dad through the fitness industry.
Yeah, he was working in the gym and I was working in the gym, and
Both working
he
in the
was
same gym.
yeah he was kind of trying to work out what he wanted to do with his life. He ended up going into building after that, but I started working there as an aerobics instructor, and he was working there full time as a personal trainer and
Right.
doing fitness assessments. And we'd only just met because a friend at work knew him and said, "Oh, when you go to the gym, say hello to Steve Boon." And I'm like, "Oh, who's this Steve Boon guy?" So I sort of went looking for who he was, and I saw his name on the office door. So I knocked on the office door and he called me in. And I said, "Oh, I'm Noni Edis," I was at the time, "and I'm here. I've just started working here teaching classes." And he goes, "Oh, come in. Have you ever had a fitness assessment?" And I was like, "No, I haven't actually." So he called me in and he's like all professional. He's got his chart, he's writing down all the details, and he's doing a body fat check. You know how they do that with what do they call those, the equipment that they use to actually pinch your fat?
I don't know, we'll just
Anyway, he was just like grabbing
calipers.
me. Calipers.
Yeah.
He was just like grabbing me all over the body with them. And he just made me laugh. He just made me laugh from day one, and I just was really smitten with him. So then from then,
Were you dating someone at the time?
I'd broken up with a boyfriend. So
right.
yeah.
So you were single when you met Dad. Okay.
Yeah. And then you came into my world, and then Mason came into my world, and so I was 20 when I had you, and then I was 24 when I had Mason, and then I started asking the question, what do I want to do with my life? So that's when I studied graphic design, and I had a corporate graphic design business for at least 10 years, and then I opened the cafe homewares store, ran that for 3 years. And then after that, I studied holistic counselling, which was 3 years of working on myself.
So you went from fitness instructing to graphic design, to running a cafe business, to then counselling.
Yeah. And the reason why I said earlier that they're all stepping stones is that everything that I learned, like learning about the body, health, fitness, was because we're three-dimensional, we're mind, body, soul. So I learned a lot about how to look after yourself, how to be fit, how to be healthy, because how you look after your body is really important. And when you're studying holistic counselling, you're looking at the whole person. So it was good for me to already have that background and already have that knowledge and have that established in my life. So then from there, the creativity of graphic design and being creative and learning how you can create your life, that you're not just a victim of circumstance, that you actually co-create your life with the universe and with whatever it is that your soul determines is going to be the best thing for you to do to live your best life.
There's a lot of people that get wrapped up in the idea of being professional victims these days.
Yeah, well, the victim is an archetype that we all have. One of our primary archetypes, and it's very easy to feel victimized, and we all go through periods and challenges and struggles that make us feel like a victim. The challenge for us is to become victorious, which is to overcome, and a lot of people get stuck in that. They don't know how to, and then they start to see themselves as the victim, and then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where they just keep attracting more situations and circumstances and people that victimize them.
Yeah, definitely, because they're looking for it. So their radar is always open to, how can I be offended? How can I tell this person that they're crossing some sort of a boundary? How can I be the virtuous one and then be offended on behalf of other people. I see so many times people get online, and it's usually online. It's rare in real life to find people that will come up to you and you'll be having a conversation with one person, someone will come up to you and be like, hey, I overheard you say this, that's offensive. Like, that just doesn't really happen. But what I see online is like people want a virtue signal and then get offended on another group's behalf. The biggest one I see these days is like if you call someone a retard or a spastic or whatever it happens to be, people come out and they're like, I'm offended that you use the R word. Like you can't call someone a retard these days. If you were retarded, I would understand you being offended and coming out and saying, hey, you know, that offends me. But if you're getting offended on behalf of someone else, it just doesn't make sense. And the other thing as well is like calling someone a retard is a slur. It's a put down. But so much great comedy as well, where people use slurs, use put downs. Like it depends on the context. And look, I've chosen a bad one there in the fact that you know, retard is like there's not really a great context to use that word, but I just feel like as a society, people are getting more and more sensitive, more and more professionally offended. Like every little thing is like, now you can't say this, you can't say that. Well, fuck that. Like, you know, sometimes someone does something and it's fucking retarded. Like you can't think of a better word at the time. You know, you're expressing yourself. That's the word I use. You know what I mean? This hasn't actually happened to me. Like, I'm just saying, like, it just seems like there's a lot of people out there that look for things to be offended by when really there's not that much to be, it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't run that deep. Like, people express themselves. I think if the word was rooted in like racist prejudice, like the N word is, I feel like it's got a much different content, you know, connotation and context to it than trying to ban words just simply because you're offended on behalf of someone else.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that society goes through a lot of changes and every generation is different. And I think if I look back to, say, for example, my grandparents' generation, people were a lot more stoic back then. People, particularly in...
Well, they're on the back of a fucking world war. Like our generation...
They were tougher. They were just tougher. They weren't easily offended.
Well, they were raised by baby boomers. And then, you know, those people were raised by, you know, World War II survivors, right? So that generation of people grew up with absolutely nothing.
Well, we've become soft. We've become very soft and in some ways weak.
Our generation, it's really, really weird because our generation has lived through something like 13 wars, fought in the Middle East, obviously for well, in my opinion, for quite corrupt political agendas. But one thing I'll say is our generation haven't like had to deal with the notion of a massive draft or conscription. Right? We haven't had to deal with the possibility of going to war. Our generation hasn't really had to think like, well, fuck, I've got to toughen up because I might have to go and defend my life for my country. Those people did have that to deal with. 100% had that to deal with. It was World War II, Korea, Vietnam. They had all of these wars where they could possibly be called up to action. Our generation, the average man on the street, right? I look at and think there is absolutely no fucking way I'd put a gun in your hand and send you overseas or even to fight in this country. It'd be embarrassing. Half the men out there would be like, oh, I'm offended that there's a war going on. Like, it's honestly getting to the stage where I feel like there's now a pushback in the other direction where like and it happened, I saw it in the 80s where there was this push towards hyper masculinity. That's why like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren, you know, Sylvester Stallone, all these jacked dudes like out of their eyeballs on steroids. That was really like pushing back on, you know, late sort of second wave feminism coming out of Vietnam. Then we went into like the 80s where it was like all these super jacked dudes. It was like a pushback on, you know, that sort of stuff. And I feel like these days, you know, the most successful actor in Hollywood now is Chris Hemsworth, this big jacked, you know, 6'2" Australian guy, or Henry Cavill, like another big guy. And I just feel like the reason these guys are being idolized and emulated is because they epitomise what it is to be an alpha male. And then in society, a lot of all of this softness and political correctness, it's like there has to be, like if you go on too far left, someone from the very right will come out, right? That's just the way that it works. There's always some sort of, and I feel like the left have created characters like Andrew Tate, who now is famous for saying such like overly conservative values, like owning women and things like that. Yeah. And that's a direct result of a society that's going too far left.
Yeah. There'll always be extremes.
Yeah, but Andrew Tate is a byproduct of leftist feminism. 100%. There's no other way. Like the guy would, if society was sort of more like, okay, I'll put it this way. Even if you gave social media 30, 40, 50 years ago, I don't think Andrew Tate would be famous. Because what he's saying is like kind of like outlandish. Most people would just think he's an idiot back then. Nowadays, people are so offended by him that they're actually giving him a platform.
Not all people are offended by him, though.
That's the scary thing, is I feel like some of his stuff is quite dangerous, and then the people that he's not offending, I'm more worried about, because there's also like, and that's the thing, the weaker people in our society are actually like more susceptible to dangerous ideas. I find when I talk to guys that I respect and that I look up to, or whose opinions I value, they're not getting their opinions from Andrew Tate and guys like that. They're more shooting down the middle of, you know, conservative values, wanting like a conventional relationship with a woman, traditional gender roles, that sort of thing. They don't really buy into these ideas of like these super leftist kind of, you know, fluid genders and just these ridiculous things that society keeps bringing up as like these total non-issues that people are trying to make an issue out of. Like, and I just think that, like, as I'm saying, like that Andrew Tates of the world are going to rise the more society pushes left. Guys from the super right, like him, are going to come out.
Like the pendulum.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
So what's the answer? Like, you know, do we shoot down the middle?
What does Andrew Tate really stand for? I mean, I've only seen a few snippets of him, and some of the things that I've heard him say, I've been in agreement with. But then I can't say that I've heard enough of him to really have a valid opinion on his view of life or what he's promoting.
Well, the funny thing is, I'd never even heard of him until I went on to the set of Maths.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
Bronte was complaining to me about him.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know who Andrew Tate was.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, do you listen to Andrew Tate?
Yeah,
You know, all this sort of stuff. And I was like, no, who is that? And she goes to me, any male that listens to Andrew Tate's instant red flag and all this sort of stuff. And kind of got me curious. And,
so you looked into it?
Yeah, I just started listening to it. And like some of his stuff I'll agree, the more milder stuff is very easy to digest when you listen to it. His views on, you know, working on yourself, being an alpha male, you know, taking care of business, you know, having something to stand for, like those things are very easy to digest. Very similar to like Jordan Peterson's principles, right? Yeah. Some of the things he said, I could not disagree with more, you know, in terms of like his views on women and things like that. I just think some of the things that comes out of his mouth are a bit quite, like they're just, they're designed to incite some sort of an inflammatory response from people. Like he's trying to be a bit of a shock jock. And I just feel like it's a cheap way of doing it. Like have a positive message rather than you know calling women bitches this and bitches that and all sort of stuff. It's just not.
So he does that.
He does that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We've gone very far.
The one thing that I did hear him and see a little skit that he did, which I thought was really accurate, was he spoke about how money buys you privilege, and he was talking about flying on planes and how when he goes on his private jet, he doesn't have to wear a mask, and none of the crew wear masks. But if you go onto a commercial aircraft, you're forced to wear a mask.
And abide by the
so
rules,
it's like different rules for
For
the
elites.
elite
Yeah.
compared to, and I've only heard that, and I thought, well, he's actually speaking out about something that's really quite important for all of us to take note of. That why should there be different rules, one for the other?
I still see people driving around with COVID type masks or surgical masks on in their car.
Well, that was another thing I was going to say to you as well about masculinity, and we've had this conversation before about that. And I think that the fact that our men, from a woman's point of view, looking at our men in society and seeing them walking around with masks on for 3 years, afraid of catching a bad cold, has really not done anything favourable for masculinity. I think it's emasculated men.
I didn't see anything virtuous about wearing a cloth muzzle around.
Not when it's proven that it doesn't stop the spread of an airborne. Exactly. So it was a control thing.
It was
men.
designed to slow the spread, which it didn't have any scientific
that's
proof
right.
of doing.
And in fact, it actually caused harm.
Well, see people would go, public transport. Well, what about when people get off public transport? They go into a busy food court and they take their mask off to eat, and they're breathing the same air as everyone else. Or when someone, the thing is, one cough when someone's eating or drinking or whatever it happened to be that had COVID, that was COVID positive, one cough would send those spores of spit tens of feet into the air, right? To be breathed in by those masks don't stop every bit of vaporous breath, right? And the science was clear on the fact that those masks did not stop the spread, because you could be wearing a mask on your mouth, but those droplets from that cough go into your eyes, sit on your skin. It's just the notion that we ever stopped COVID with this useless vaccine and these dumbass masks is ridiculous. And the people that still buy into this shit are quite often very easily led by the media. Yeah, they're the same people that think maths was real. The same people. Well,
the television's just a brainwashing device.
You know what's funny? I'll be having a say online, or I'll read a comment online, or I'll have a discussion with someone online or whatever. And the women, it's usually women. It's I'd say 99% women that actually have been doing the online bullying, from what I've seen, which was really sad to see. Because women are always the ones doing the most virtue signaling online, and yet they're the ones partaking in the majority of the cyberbullying that I saw against myself, other contestants. It blew my mind to see the amount of women out there willing to engage in cyberbullying and harassment of people. I'm not talking about one comment. I'm talking about multiple comments, sending me an abusive message. All of the cast talk to all of the cast, right? And I'm in a group chat with 90% of the guys from this year. And we will sometimes share abusive messages we get from people. Yeah. And it's disgusting. Yeah. And it's always women. Always women. I was blown out by that.
I've had a few from men.
But then I click on the profile and the first photo that comes up is the Facebook where you could set your Facebook profile photo, and it's a photo of them.
Or a cat?
No, it's a photo of them.
I get a lot of cats.
Yeah. They're out there. Cats do have online profiles too. Cat life. No, it'll be a photo of their profile photo, but then they've set a Facebook border that you can select in and it says I'm vaccinated, you're welcome. Oh yeah. And I'm just
isn't that gone now?
No, people love
that did the rounds, but I thought it's gone. I thought it had gone.
No, people wear that shit like it's.
Haven't people moved on to saving the environment? Climate change?
No. They only move on to whatever the media tells them.
Well, it's climate change.
Yeah,
that's the new COVID. Yeah.
Global cooling or global warming? I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, it's global warming.
It's 11 degrees. Yeah. And what month are we in? April. Right. It's 11 degrees in April.
I know. Well, climate change. Yeah. There's. you can listen to the professors that aren't censored.
April or May?
We're in May.
We're in May. 5th month, right?
It's Mother's Day.
Yeah, it is Mother's Day.
Yeah, you should know that.
Speaking of which, I've got something for you.
And he leaves the podcast to go and get something for me.
It is Mother's Day. And I haven't forgotten. And I did.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
So I do remember. But one thing I'm saying is we're in May.
Yeah.
And it's 11 degrees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want global warming to kick in.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything I can. Doing burnouts in the Coles car park, throwing car batteries into the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything I can to bring this temperature
I think the
up.
problem that we have with the world is pollution.
Yes.
And big corporations.
There's a fucking
yeah.
there's a trash thing the size of Texas in the ocean. Killing all this
We need to be addressing that.
I'm so sick and tired of people being like, you should drink out of a mushy paper straw and drive an electric vehicle when fucking BP tipped like 100 billion barrels of oil into the Gulf of Mexico.
Well, the people telling us
they've done more environmental damage than I'll ever do in my entire lifetime, even if I flew around every day via a commercial airline.
Well, the people telling us to have a cold shower fly to Davos in their private jets.
Oh, they fly to Nuremberg or whatever and have these climate committee meetings.
Once you realise how the world's run, then it's very, very hard
the notion that we should live with less so they can have more is absurd to me.
Well, they've got trillions of dollars. Look at the Rothschilds family.
Yeah, well, they own
trillions of dollars. They own everything. Yeah. So you've sort of come to a realisation that we are ants, we're peasants.
You going to Boost Juice and drinking your juice with a paper straw is exactly what's going to save the environment. Don't let the elites fool you. Don't do it. Paper straws. Yeah, recyclable bags of Coles. That's the shit that's going to turn this mess around.
Yeah. And honestly,
not the elites being held accountable for the fact that they've been raising.
It's really hard to try to solve all the problems of the world, and everything packaged in plastic, and the way that we live is not good.
We're doing it today in this podcast.
Yeah. We need to definitely, all of us need to contribute to looking after the planet in a better way, and we can all do more. But I think that there's a lot of ideas that are held back because it doesn't make money for the people who are concerned with making money. Some people are just born greedy. They're power hungry. Billions is not enough. They want trillions. They want control. They feel superior to us and they want to control us, and they have ways of doing it, and their ways of doing it are definitely not holding our best interest at heart. And when you realise that, I mean, it's archetypal. It's happened since the beginning of time. There's always royalty. There's kings and queens, and then there's peasants, and they don't want anything in between. So the ruling class has always been there.
So speaking of ruling class, back onto our family, because I feel like we started off talking about who knows.
We always go off on tangents, don't we?
And then we've ended up in geopolitical. Saving the world. So I wanted to ask you. So you met Dad at the gym. You've had 3 kids.
Yeah.
Did you decide to raise them all as narcissists, or just the eldest?
Just you?
Yeah, just the eldest.
I think when you were born, I definitely had some.
Did I come out with a silver spoon in my mouth?
I had some parenting goals. It was definitely to try to steer you towards being a narcissist, a gaslighter, and a giant red flag. Really?
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. No.
Okay, that's all.
Definitely not. That's a wrap. Definitely. Look, it's interesting because this whole labeling thing is something that people are very excited about doing. But I've studied psychology, and in order to have a personality disorder, you basically can't really function in society, and you need professional help. You function in society. You've never needed professional help. Although, in saying that, we have done.
You could argue that I've had professional help my entire life.
Well, you've done some counselling. You've done some work on yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
We've done family counselling. We've all looked at ourselves. in order for me to get my diploma as a counsellor, I had to work on myself for 3 years. And I worked with the best of the best. Do you think that they were going to give me a diploma and say, now you can go out and help people if I was a narcissist? Don't you think I would have actually failed?
Or raise a narcissist?
Wouldn't I have failed?
No.
Yeah.
I think the best one for me is like one of my best mates, Paul, is a psychologist. You're a you're a counsellor, yeah, who studied psychology. I didn't want to say psychology because the terms are
they're different. Yeah.
So, two important people in my life have actual degrees to do with psychology, right? One's Paul's job is to assess people with disorders, with behavioural and mental disorders. That is his full-time job, right?
Yeah.
And I have asked him point blank, no bullshit. I said, like, I want your professional opinion. I know it's a conflict of interest for you to really assess me, but I want your professional opinion. Would you consider me a narcissist? Right? And he went through, there's like 7 or 8 behavioural disorders you have to meet in order to be qualifying to be a narcissist. I think there's like one is like a very high opinion of yourself. There's other ones to do with how
lacking empathy.
Yeah, how you interact in society, like other people, how you do other and like to keep in mind, like I think that's like 5% of the entire population is actual narcissists. Like it's a very low number. And he said to me, he's like, you don't meet the requirements for narcissism. And that's the beautiful thing about Married at First Sight at Charles, and where all of this has sort of started, is the fact that the people saw a very small snippet of a very negative side of my behaviour based on the environment I was in, the person I was matched with, and the fact that producers were egging all of this on. Like, you kind of drop your guard a bit and you go, okay, I'm on a TV show, I'm gonna have fun with this and not fake anything. That's not the impression I'm trying to paint, but I'm saying that you're gonna, okay, like if Claire's gonna come at me, I'm gonna fucking snap back, right? Like I'm not gonna hold back. I'm gonna really drop my guard and like give this my all, because I'm not gonna get this opportunity again. You know, and you don't know how the edit's going to go either as well when all this is happening. Yeah. And so the parts of the show that we see definitely look narcissistic. Like I have to admit that. Like you know, and people want accountability. Well, that's my accountability is I see where people are coming from. But the hardest thing for me to overcome is simply talking about the edit, and that is that there is a lot that you didn't see. There is a lot of context there. If you see 3 minutes of a conversation that might have taken place over 4 hours, right? I guarantee you are not getting the full picture. And I can take anyone off the street, poke and prod them for 4 hours, and just show the 3 minutes where they snap back, and that would look narcissistic, it would look aggressive, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I think it just goes hand in hand with how easy the media is to play the viewing public. Yeah. And the viewing public don't fucking care to use their critical thinking skills. Most people out there are employed, right? It's something like 10% of the population are entrepreneurs. 90% of people are like employees. They don't get paid to use critical thinking skills in their job. They get paid to provide a service. Like you know, they get paid to provide labour or some sort of exchange for that, you know, for that money, and then they come home and they want to watch trash TV and not have to think. You know what I mean?
And they feel better about themselves if they can look at you on the screen and think that you're a dickhead. They feel better about themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's what projection is. That's what being judgmental is.
I totally get that. Yeah. The network knows if they give the people someone to throw stones at through their television and get them passionate and fired up, exactly the same way that we do with professional sports, they're going to tune in next week. Right? And that's why they only showed the parts of my relationship and my behaviour that were, for lack of a better word, negative and narcissistic. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But does that make me a narcissist?
Of course not.
Correct. Yeah. But people want to cling to that opinion because it's popular.
Maybe
Again, they don't want any pushback. They don't want to use their critical
maybe
thinking
it's
skills.
accurate to say that those edited snippets of your character on that show fitted into some narcissistic criteria is probably what you could say.
Correct.
But then,
see, the criteria is only known to people that would open a textbook on the disorder of narcissistic behavioural disorder, right?
Yeah,
and most
exactly.
people have never even read the literature, so they wouldn't know what they're even looking for. So when they use words like narcissist and gaslighting and all that sort of stuff, they're just using popular phrases from the television show. They don't actually know what they mean. Bronte didn't even know what gaslighting was. I heard on a podcast recently that Bronte had to explain to me what gaslighting was, or I heard it on the show or some shit like that. That is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
We sat down. I know what gaslighting means. We sat down, right, and I was explaining to Bronte that she's been gaslighting me, right, and she apologised. None of this ever made it to camera. Yeah. This was when she went to Caitlin. I don't know, I think I told you about this.
Yeah.
Where she went to Caitlin, said all these lies, said that I called her unattractive and all this sort of stuff. And I explained to Bronte, I said, that's gaslighting. You saying I've called you unattractive is gaslighting. I said I'm not attracted to you at that point in time. Who I'm attracted to is completely subjective to me. Your level of attractiveness is completely subjective to everyone. People either going to find you attractive or not, right? But that's their personal subjective choice, especially based on where we're at. Like I told you everything that had happened through the honeymoon. Yeah. And I said, especially based on where we're at right now, I don't find you attractive. I don't want to jump into bed with you. I don't want to be around you. Like, you're the last person I want to be around right now. Right? So why would I find you attractive if I don't want to be around you?
Well, that's right.
And I explained to her that there is a huge difference between saying, I'm not attracted to you right now,
or you're unattractive.
You're unattractive. Or you're ugly.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Right? So twisting my words is gaslighting me.
Yeah. Making you question your reality.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? And I said, Bronte, what do you think gaslighting means? And she looked me dead in the eye and she goes, it's when someone doesn't validate your emotions. Those were the words she used, word for word, verbatim. And I said, no, Bronte. I was like, no. Gaslighting is when you make someone question reality by changing facts, changing words, changing statements. That is gaslighting someone. That's textbook gaslighting someone. Making someone question what actually happened. And then in the same podcast, Bronte has made up entire conversations that never happened. Like, just the most ridiculous claims. And the best part of it is, no one's listening to it. No one can stand her anymore. She's lost all credibility. The voice notes was one thing, right? But since then, she's gone on to say that I was violent, that I would come home drunk and get handsy with her. Like, all this sort of absolutely absurd bullshit. And the best thing is, someone's given her a platform to open her mouth and do that. Like, seeing Bronte unedited is actually the best argument I'm ever going to have into why my relationship was fucked. Just watch her. Like, listen to her unedited. Like, I encourage people to go and listen to that shit. It's absolute trash, for one. And the second thing is, she can't make a statement 1 minute and then she just completely contradicts herself the next. Like, I was listening to her speak and she was saying that she felt threatened by me or whatever it happened to be. Again, an absurd lie, saying that I would come home and slam doors or throw a pillow or some shit. And then in the next minute, she's talking about how something to do with her Raindrop app, if she didn't listen to it, she was going to punch me. Right? I'm like, so 1 minute you're afraid of me and the next minute you're threatening me with physical violence? Like, just the whole, she's done like a whole series of these podcasts. Yeah. And every single one of them is a huge contradiction to the next. Like, she can't make a single coherent point.
I think the whole thing is toxic, you know, and I mean, you know,
but why it was toxic is because I was matched with a compulsive liar who entered into a fake relationship with me in order to build a platform for herself and has since, right, So she did that on the show, and then since leaving the show, she's done that.
Yeah.
And I'll just give you some examples of the claims she's made. She's claimed that I got handsy with her when I was drunk. She's claimed that I was violent and intimidated her. She's claimed that I gaslit her. She's claimed that I, based on something you said to me on day 3 of our honeymoon, she's claimed that I was in a fake relationship with her. So I wanted to ask you, one of the things that's come up, it came up on the show, obviously, and it's come up since, was, and I wanted to hear it from you, straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, sure.
There was a comment made, and again, I'll let you tell the story, but I basically called you on day 3 of the honeymoon, right? And it was like on the back of an argument or something, like we just were not getting along. And the conversation had sort of got to a point where you were starting to give me advice, right? And I want to now hand it over to you. Do you remember what you said?
Well, we spoke about so many things, and I think when you went into this, you reached out and said that you will probably, it'll be tough, it'll be hard, that going into an experiment in itself is a challenging thing to do regardless, and that there'll be times when you'll probably reach out to me for advice or guidance or just wisdom, just for the simple fact that I think sometimes you look to me for that because I'm your mum on one hand, but also because of my counselling experience on the other. So I think I was anticipating that you would reach out to me for various different things at various different times. I remember, would it be beneficial if I just explain the relationship from my perspective, what I witnessed and what I saw?
We can get to what you saw and that, because I think that's valuable.
Yeah.
But the quote in question was, you said, give Australia a love story.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get how did you intend that comment, and what was the context of why you said it?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, that comment came from, because I'm always going to, even when I do couples counselling, and it was interesting because I was counselling a couple. I'm counselling a couple at the moment, and I counselled the male, and he said to me, my wife's going to think that you are taking my side, because sometimes I'll do her, then I'll do him, then I'll do them together, because I want to hear her perspective, I want to hear his perspective, and then I bring them together. And I said to him, I don't take sides of the male or the female, I'm on the side of the relationship.
Wow.
So for me, I'm always going to be nurturing and trying to empower the relationship, because I see it as a separate entity. I see that there's the two people and their entities, and then the relationship is a separate entity. And we're all working on making the relationship healthy and the best that it can possibly be. So that's where I would have been coming from with you and Bronte, was I'm here to help for your relationship to be good, because we want that to survive, right? You've gone into an experiment, you've given up your life, in a sense, you've given up your job, it's costing you a lot of money to be there, you've invested in it, you went into it hoping that you'd meet somebody really good. So of course I'm going to be cheering, and I'm going to be doing everything that I can to encourage you to give it your all. And another thing that I've always said is that you have to earn your way out of a relationship. And that means that you've done everything within your power to make that relationship work. You've sat, you've talked, you've done counselling, you've looked into yourself, you've taken responsibility, accountability, you've done everything that you possibly can before quitting on it. And I always come from that place of, have you done everything? Have you earned your way out? And that's something that otherwise I wouldn't have been married for 33 years. I would have quit many times over. So I would have been coming from that place. And when I said, give Australia a love story, if I use those words, I don't know, I can't remember, it would have been, you two are in an experiment that Australia's watching, make it work.
Right.
You know, you two, make it work. Like I would say to any couple in any relationship, make it work.
Were you insinuating that we should fake anything?
No, because I was at the wedding and I saw the chemistry and I saw the way that you two looked at each other and I saw the potential. I met her family. I really liked Bronte. I still like Bronte. I have nothing against Bronte. I don't have anything against anybody in my life.
I don't have anything against her per se. I just wish she'd stop lying about me and our relationship.
People just behave badly, you know, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Quite often people behave badly and it's coming from a place of insecurity or it's coming from an attention-seeking perspective. Whatever is the underlying issue that causes people to behave badly doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person. So I don't have that judgment.
I just don't see her as gaining anything out.
It crosses a line sometimes when it actually and it crosses a line if they're accusing you of something that you haven't done.
Correct.
That's
my issue with
right. Okay.
See, I don't have an issue with I'm much happier. I hope that she's happy wherever she is. I wish her all the best. One thing I've never done is lie about a relationship. Like everything that happened in the relationship, everything that happened on the show. And since I'm not the one out there lying and misrepresenting it. Like, yeah, we had a shit time. We had some good times. We had some really terrible times.
Yeah.
She put me through an awful lot.
Yeah.
And I never quite knew why. I was always like distrusting of Bronte.
Yeah, you were straight up.
The penny dropped the moment I heard those voice notes.
Yeah.
That was the come to Jesus moment. That was like that was the curtains. Everything fell down.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it now. You were faking it the whole time. Everything in that relationship you were faking. You were pretending to be genuine and pretending to be invested, but you weren't. How could anyone be genuinely invested in a relationship where they had ulterior motives? Where they knew dirt on someone and were using it against them the entire time? How could anyone make that relationship work? She betrayed me the minute we got in that experiment. And then even when she was falling for me, she never came clean.
Yeah.
Right? And now she's trying to pretend like she was genuine and all of that was just, that was weeks before the wedding and I just forgot the moment I walked down the aisle and the game plan went out the window and I just got overwhelmed and she cut the shit, man. You fucking played me. You lied, you manipulated me and you played me. And the reason I'm behaving the way I am is because I'm with someone that's faking this relationship, putting me through the absolute meat grinder to create a platform for themselves. And when you didn't get it on the show, Bronte, you've then gone into the world and tried to get it in other avenues by lying about me, our relationship, things that never even happened. The one thing I found interesting on the same platform, Sophie did a podcast and said I was never violent, never intimidated her. No matter how hard the podcaster was trying to push Sophie in that direction, she never gave that. She was that's the one thing that I respect about that podcast with Sophie is that she said I was never violent.
She was honest.
Yeah, she was honest about that. Look, she was dishonest about other things. She was dishonest about our child support and things like that. Like I've got a real issue with that because I do care about the truth in those matters. And the thing is, like, you know the truth. You've seen all of those screenshots. You know exactly what happened between me and Sophie. In fact, you probably know more about my relationships than anyone ever. And that's because you are the guiding light in my life. You are the most experienced, you are the most level-headed, and you are the most wisdomous person I know. So why wouldn't I try and exploit that relationship in order to get the best out of it for myself, who I'm with? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, maybe exploit's not the right word, but I mean, I want to gain
benefit
your knowledge.
From it,
yeah, benefit. I want to benefit from our mutual relationship, right? And so when I hit a snag, I come to you and I'm like, this is what's happening. Yeah. And you know full well my original agreement with Sophie and how she backed on everything. The whole reason I went to court with Sophie was because she wasn't sticking to anything that we agreed to. Yeah. Child support included. Like the whole thing was, I wanted to do the right thing by her and August. Yeah. The only person that ever got in the middle of that was Sophie. Ever. How many times have I called you and said, it was Sophie's turn to do the driving and she won't do it.
Yeah.
How many times over the last 2 years would you say I've called you about that?
Yeah, a lot. Look, I think the thing is though, like with all relationships that are in conflict and ongoing conflict, it's always ugly, unfortunately. It's always ugly.
How many times in my relationship with Bronte did I call you and say, I don't trust her and I can't put my finger on why?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
And when you heard those voice notes, what did you think?
Well, it explained a lot because I think the thing was, as I said, like at the wedding, the two of you definitely had chemistry, and everybody was excited for you. Yeah. Her friends, myself, your friends, everybody was quite excited, and we were all cheering. And then you went on the honeymoon, and the whole 21-year-old girl thing came up, and it's like that just became a sticking point. And I think all
is
the
Bronte, just quickly, is the 21-year-old girl Gina?
No.
Right.
She's not 21.
No,
but I think
people keep saying that she is.
No. So I think the thing
was
is,
Gina ever part of my relationship issues with Bronte?
No.
Thank you.
So I think the thing is that if all that Bronte had to do to actually have a valid chance with you, in my opinion, was trust you. She just needed to trust you from day one. Like when you said this 21-year-old girl is nothing in the sense that it's not an ongoing thing, all she had to do was trust you that you were telling the truth, because you were telling the truth.
I'm gonna defend Bronte here and say I feel like she did.
You feel like she did trust you?
I feel like she did. On the wedding night, she said, "Look, I'm choosing to trust you."
But you said she kept making a bigger deal out of it, like milking
I'll
it.
get to that. Okay. I'll get to that. So on the wedding night, that's why I'm defending her. Okay. On the wedding night, she said to me, "I'm choosing to trust you. I'm going to put this behind us."
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then we went to our hotel room. We cuddled all night. Like, this is when I first heard about this raindrop app, and I had the worst night's sleep of my life. The next day we were up early to go to the Humber Valley. Right?
You're telling me it sounded like sleeping through like a thunderstorm.
Oh, like a thunderstorm,
like a tornado.
I've slept through a couple of really bad storms up in Noosa, and it was actually the raindrop app was worse. One thing, because it's a calming sound, but it's blaring. So it was like some sort of weird torture. Yeah. Like you do in like a gulag or some sort of like Eastern European torture prison. I don't get like Eastern European torture prisoner survivors coming out being like, I'm offended now. Anyway, I lost my so I feel like she did say that she was gonna try. I feel like producers then were like, this is an amazing storyline.
They were pushing it.
Right. And then they were pushing the other women into it. I don't think, like, looking back now, I don't think Melinda really gave a fuck. Right? But it's a great platform if you're going to attack the bad guy. You look like a good guy in default, right? Yeah. Because whoever's attacking the bad guy... It was the producer's MO on you. Whoever's attacking the bad guy is automatically going to be the good guy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And... I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Melinda was always kind of secretly worried about how she was going to come across after how her and Leighton were at the wedding, what she said about him. She was already on the back foot and she knew it. And so she saw this opportunity.
Yeah, because her response to him was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was terrible, no one wants to hear that said about them. You know, especially from their wife, person who's married. Yeah. So I feel like Melinda looked at a bit of a shot at like redemption, attacking the bad guy, ganging up on the bad guy. And maybe producers had something to do with it, I don't know. Yeah. And she took a shot and it paid off for her. Like, by default, she looked like a good person. Yeah. Cracking at me, right? And Bronte, this is the issue I have with Bronte, is all well and good producers want their storyline. But Bronte sat back and fed that group to keep attacking me, right? This is where I now go back on defending Bronte. Bronte knew about Abby, the 21-year-old, before the wedding. Yes. Had all the information on me. Yes. So why not at that point defend me? If she was choosing to trust me, why at the first dinner party and first commitment ceremony did she feed me to the wolves and sit there like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth, the innocent one, when she knew full well that is the most manipulative, that is the most narcissistic, that is the most gaslighter move I've ever seen from anyone ever.
So do you think a part of her wanted to trust you and then another part just didn't?
I think a part of her probably wanted it to work.
Yeah.
But she was so jealous of this other girl.
Oh, okay.
And so,
yeah.
And Bronte's the kind of person when she's jealous or hurt, nothing is off limits.
Okay.
She'll make up the biggest
Hence why I
stories.
said bad behaviour can often come from some underlying insecurity or...
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And this isn't me psychoanalyzing Bronte, I just know full well that she's a jealous person, right? And when she's jealous or hurt or feels backed into a corner, and on the plus side can try and get something for herself like fame and notoriety, then nothing's off limits. She'll attack anything she can to try and bring you down. Like that, and that's what I saw. That's one thing I really learned about human psychology from the show. Is I saw men weren't really getting involved in the conflicts, right? And especially Jesse and Adam when they went at each other, and I watched their conflict. They didn't really want to be in the same room with each other. Like they were just like, they just wanted to sort it out and then get out of there. Yeah. The women really got involved in character assassination and lies and manipulation. Like I really saw the women, like, man, Claire playing the innocent one when she knew full well about all this. Yeah. Like, and then putting it on Jesse. And calling him, like, essentially trying to make out like he's crazy. And calling him out for calling her out. I just feel like when I watch the show back, I see there's two different types of conflict types. The men didn't want to get involved, wanted to step back from it, and would only really get involved in like huge ticket items, right? Whereas the women, right, especially Bronte, would really engage in character assassination and tearing someone down. Like they would go for the character. Yeah. And it showed to me that there's two different types of conflict because men and women have different tools. Yeah, sure. Men are physical. Yeah. Men will use their presence on another man, the threat of violence. Whereas a woman doesn't have that, like especially the women on my season maps. So they would engage in other forms of conflict where it's like character assassination and you know, lying about someone, you know, going for their reputation, going for them at a dinner table in public rather than one-on-one. Like I saw the men really go at each other one-on-one, whereas the women would do it in public. You know? Just an interesting way, like a dynamic that I saw from the two different sexes on my season. And I see it play out on other seasons as well.
Yeah, men and women are very different. That's why the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus was written, because it explains how we're wired differently as well. And we are very different when it comes to relationships and conflict situations and all of that.
So you made a point earlier about what you saw from my relationship, because you were on the journey from start to finish with Max, as you were in really all of my relationships that I've ever had, including the one I'm in now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to kind of be easily painting the picture that I interfere or anything.
I'm not insinuating that you're the third wheel of my relationships. Like, I'm a 33-year-old man.
Yeah, of course.
I can have my own relationships. Yeah. There's absolutely no harm in going to someone that I trust and love and care for, who is also an expert in this field, to ask for advice, right? So anyone trying to insinuate that you're like some sort of third wheel or influence in relationships absurd. Like,
you always make up your own mind.
I make my own mind up even when you give
Often
me
you
good
don't
advice.
take
Yeah. Often you'll give me good advice
and you won't take
the exact
it.
opposite just to see what happens.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Because you've always been the sort of person that I've said to you, Harrison, that hot plate's hot, don't touch it, and you'll touch it.
I'm stubborn.
You've always been like that. Well, you need to have your own experiences. You know, you learn the hard way. Yeah, you've always learned the hard way.
I've always learned the hard way. I don't know why. I'm just wired to learn the hard way.
Well,
so what? I guess we've established now that you weren't an interfering third wheel, right? You're not an overbearing.
I wouldn't want to be that. No. And I don't reach in, but if you reach out, I'm there for you.
Correct. That
Yeah.
is one thing I will say about you is you will not initiate any sort of help or you're not that sort of person. You help yourself, and if you're really stuck, come to me and I'll help you. I'll talk you through getting around the obstacle.
I try to be objective.
All of my earliest memories of you and Dad as parents were like, you're going to do this for yourself, whether you like it or not. We're just here to help you along the way, right? Like, I remember one of my earliest memories was I was trying to get a dirt bike up a hill, and Dad was like, just ride to the top, and I couldn't get this fucking dirt bike up this hill, and neither of you was going to help me do it. You guys were like, the dirt bike's in your hands. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's steep. Yeah, it's scary. Ride the fucking bike up the hill, right? And I got to the top of the hill and I was like, fuck, I can do this, right? It wasn't easy. It was scary. There wasn't a lot of traction. Wheels were slipping. Like, very daunting task for a, I don't know, what, 10-year-old kid or something at the time.
Same with your horse when you have a horse. It's like you saddle it, you bridle it, you
saddle
ride it.
You bridle it. If you fall off, it's on you, right? But then if I ever like needed help knowing where the straps would go, I'd ask you and you'd come over and show me. I'd still saddle it and bridle it myself. Yeah. So you're not, I think it's important to make that distinction that you aren't an overbearing mother. You are the sort of person where you're like, no, you're going to carry out the task, but if you need help and guidance, I'm always here for you.
Well, your longest relationship was with Sophie to date. Your longest relationship, and when she was asked whether or not I was an interfering mother-in-law, her answer was no.
Right, and the thing is that about the relationship is Sophie and I had 1,000,000 times more invested into the relationship than Bronte and I ever would.
Absolutely, you had a child.
Exactly. Yeah. We had a child and we actually lived together, not on a fucking television set. Like we lived together in an actual house that I was paying for. We had a child together. Like, there was a lot more to the dynamic of our relationship that would have involved a lot more, that came with a lot more stresses and pressure than anything Bronte and I experienced. And you weren't overbearing. I never got violent. Like, a lot of Bronte's stories don't add up, right? So, moving past the accusation of you being an overbearing mother, what I will ask is, so you were essentially like a helping, guiding hand through that relationship now that we've established that. So what was your impression of that relationship with Bronte, of my relationship with Bronte?
I think that it's a relationship in a pressure cooker because it's an unnatural environment. You weren't even able to go out and really be in life together.
We were. No, we could go on dates and things like that.
Yeah, but you weren't allowed to go and do anything that couldn't be filmed.
It's a weird one because there was a few days where we weren't being filmed, and Bronte was very happy to just lay around the house. Like, she wasn't really up for doing things. And in her defense, the weather was shit most of the time. Yeah, right. The weather was always pretty glib and miserable. Yeah. But she wasn't really ever like a, let's go do this type person. Yeah. She was very happy to just let the show happen around her and, So one day I sort of got over watching her sit around the house and I said, like, look, I'm going to go pick up my car and we'll go, I'll take you around Sydney for the day. And I took her to Milk Beach and took her around Sydney and we had a great time. Yeah. Then, later on that week we went and had cocktails together and, we both had, we went out to go get sushi. It was my idea. I said, let's get out of the house. It's like, she'd been in there since all morning. It was like 11:30 or 12 o'clock, and I was like, let's go get lunch. And she didn't really want to, but I sort of talked her into it. And then we were walking to go get sushi, and we were holding hands. Yeah. There were times where we were out in a real couple, right? And then it started pissing down rain. And so we ducked into this little bar that I know of just behind Kent Street in the city. And a great little cocktail bar, they had great dumplings and things like that. And we went in there and we had dumplings and then we had, espresso martinis and one drink turned into about 4. Next minute, we were all over each other. Like there was moments in that relationship that were organic and real.
I remember you reporting that. Yeah.
And those moments, I think, were authentic. Yeah. In amongst the chaos. Yeah. And I think it was, correct me, you tell me your opinion on this, because you're sort of an observer.
Well, I always wanted it to work.
Well, in those moments, those are the moments where she fell for me. Those are the moments where she fell for me. And those are the moments where I started to fall for her, which, in my opinion, is what instigated I'm questioning now what the future of the relationship looks like, right?
Yeah.
And when I started to apply the pressure of questions, just questions, just conversations with Bronte, I never trusted
the answers.
The answers.
Yeah.
The answers were very vague, flippant, like the equivalent of the conversational equivalent of just kicking the can down the road. Oh, we'll see. Let's cross that bridge.
You had a lot of guards up too, because you'd been hurt in your previous relationship.
And I've been single for so long because I didn't want to get hurt.
That's right. And you had trust issues, for one thing. You definitely had trust issues. And then also an interstate situation is just, it's like...
How's that ever going to work?
How's it ever going to work? Like, I was just questioning why the producers on the show would match you with somebody that comes from interstate when you've been through the giant hurt of having your child moved 5 hours away from you.
Correct. And then I was always saying, well,
and then you go, what, you're going to go through that again?
If you're not 100% committed to Sydney.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
My fear is that now it won't be Sydney Forbes, it'll be Sydney Perth.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll be flying to Perth one weekend and then driving to Forbes the next. Like, fuck that.
Well, you're in a relationship now with someone who's already proven that they can be away from their family. Because she's been away from her family for 5 years.
Gina moved here.
Right? So she's got that independence.
Gina moved here, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But she came here 7 years ago with an ex on a holiday. And
but she's not clingy.
No, I don't want to go into
She's not
Gina's
clingy
story.
with her.
It's not appropriate. It's not my story.
But it's more just the fact of
one thing
someone.
I will say is the psychology of someone who has shown a pattern and a history of being able to stand on their own 2 feet.
Correct. An independent person.
Now I see Gina as an Australian Sydney-sider who has decided to make this small part of the world her permanent home. And so I have nothing but trust that, good or bad, this is where, if we have children, this is where they will stay. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I didn't have that with Sophie, and I 100% never had that with Bronte.
Yeah. There was always that fear that you'd be in the same situation that you'd just been in. Because we used to kind of make jokes about it, when things were bad.
The evidence is on the wall. When I asked her what the future of the relationship looked like, she wanted to go home. Just asking her questions and saying, Bronte, I don't believe what you're saying. Like, when I ask you, where would you want to live? How would we make this relationship work? Okay, have you thought about job prospects? Like, what does the future look like for you? It was all too hard for her. And then she goes, I want to leave and go home. And I'm like, oh, fuck, there's my evidence. How do I trust you? Right? And my mistake, the only mistake I made on maths was staying beyond that point. I should have left the show then. So they dragged it out and the relationship just got more toxic. And you know what they got me to stay? Right? Was they fucking filled my head with the fact that I could turn the relationship around somehow, or if I left it would look fake and I'd get a shit edit. So I had the fear of a bad edit on one hand and the possibility of making the relationship work on the other. So either way, I was damned if I did or damned if I didn't, right? If I left, the relationship looks fake and all the hard work I put in would be for nothing. And if I stay, I've got the possibility of turning it around, right? And I came to you and I was like, what do I do, right? Like, we've gone around the room at a dinner party and everyone's relationship was fucked. Cameron Lindless was falling apart. Melinda and Leighton were in a terrible place. And we never see their relationship really play out on TV. They fought like cats and dogs from day one to the end of that experiment. They had a tumultuous relationship. And they played out like a fucking love story. It's ridiculous.
It's
you want
crazy.
to talk about how the editing is, right? Great people, like Melinda and Leighton. Nothing against them. They had a fucking shit-ass relationship on the show.
They're still together now though, aren't they?
They are, But he lives in Sydney, she's in Brisbane.
Okay.
Like, what kind of relationship? That's tough. That's a long-distance relationship, right? You know, and I hope that when they see each other, and from all reports that I've got back, when they see each other, it's explosive and passionate and positive. Good.
Yeah.
On the show,
One success
it did
story.
not go well.
Yeah.
Like, it's evident when I moved in to their house for 3 days, just going to sleep on their couch for 3 days and observe Melinda in a natural habitat, the fucking World War III erupted. Right? So, why not show their relationship in its entirety? In its true colours?
Well,
anyway, so when we went around the dinner table and I saw all of this firsthand, right?
Yeah.
Claire and Jessie had just broken up. Like, there was relationships that were fucked beyond repair at that dinner table. And I was like, well, these people aren't giving up. So what's my excuse? I have some doubts.
Yeah. And I would have always been saying, you've got to earn your way out. Have you earned your way out? Have you tried everything? Have you stayed till the bitter end? You know, have you really, really done everything you possibly can to make it work? And you obviously felt you hadn't, because that's the question that I would have asked you. You
did. You said something along the lines of, earning your way out of the relationship, and all the work I'd done to get there, I'd need to do equivalent or greater to get out. Right? And the annoying thing is when I came into the relationship, I was the bad guy. I was sleeping around with all these girls. You know, one of them happened to be a friend of Bronte's, right? Like, it just didn't look good. And then I was in the experiment with her on the show, and it just wasn't happening. And then all of a sudden we got really good and we turned it around. And then at the end of the relationship, the reason the wheels fell off is because I just didn't trust her. Right? And they still managed to make me look like the bad guy for that. Like, she's saying, I don't know what he wants from me. I'll move. And it's like, there's more to just hearing the right words. That's what people don't understand. Is I can say all of the right things to someone, and if they don't believe it, right, and the minute they start really questioning what I'm saying, I then say I want to leave and go home. That breaks down the trust of the relationship. So I kind of felt like it was a bit of a kick in the dick when I'm like sort of getting told you've got to earn your way out, and I'm like, well, I shouldn't have to earn my way out. Like, I just don't trust her. So like, the hard work of ending the relationship.
She hadn't proven that she was untrustworthy by that stage, though.
She hadn't proven it. No, that's the thing. But what I'm saying is, all of those doubts that I might have had about the future of the relationship will come to fruition. Like, she was saying, I want to leave and go home. And then when I confirmed that via a text message, then she makes out like I broke up with her. It's like, stop. Just take accountability for the reason this relationship isn't working. It's not a text message. That's not the reason this relationship isn't working, right? The reason the relationship isn't working is because you're doing and saying things that are making me not trust you.
Yeah.
Right? And when I came to you with these sorts of things, you'd hear them, but then the advice was always like, well, you know, you guys have put in a lot of work. There was a lot of chemistry at the start. You know, don't give up, essentially. Don't give up on Bronte. And one of the things you did say was, you know, a lot of guys, you know, that Bronte's been with have all given up on it. Don't be the guy that gives up on it.
Well, that's because of what I heard at the wedding speech from her sister. You know, and I felt for her in that. You know, so I was wanting things. I was wanting you guys to work out right throughout the whole thing.
Her narrative always seemed to be like this sort of poor me victim. You know, no one loves me. I'm the poor girl. And whilst I think maybe that some of that might have been true for previous relationships, it definitely wasn't true in ours. Like, I did genuinely have feelings for her. And I did try to make the relationship work. And she could never get it through her head that the reason it didn't work was because of her. Right? Like, the reason I pulled back in the relationship is not because of some other girl, not because I, you know, suddenly didn't feel anything or whatever. The reason I pulled back in the relationship is because I didn't trust Bronte.
You had trust issues from, like, literally from day 2, I think. You know.
Yeah.
And that thing about the camera as well, you know, when she turned and said to the cameraman, was that good? And you thought, is she acting?
It was like being on the set. It seriously, I was starting to get used to the cameras being around producers, because you got weeks of backstory and the wedding. You kind of get used to the fact that you're on camera, right? And in that moment, it felt like I was on the set of Home and Away.
Yeah.
you know, and then for her to flip out the way she did and storm off, and then when I bring her a blanket, so I don't know if you remember the conversation I had with you about one second. The conversation I had with you about Bronte's miscarriage, right? And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because Bronte's brought it up. I don't want to talk about it or discuss it really, but it's topical now. So Bronte...
it wasn't aired on the show though, was it?
Well, they couldn't air it.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about that.
No, I'll talk about it topically. I won't go into any details of what was shared. But yeah, she sort of threw in my face the fact that she'd had one. This is after the whole, the conversation with the producer was that good, and then she stormed off. And I brought her a blanket, and I checked on her, and I was like hoping that she's okay. And this will lead me to another point in a minute. And I checked on her, and I was like, I could see she was upset, and I went and checked on her. And then, tried to make sure she was okay, and then she starts throwing this miscarriage thing.
Did she tell that story in front of the cameraman and everything?
All on camera.
Okay.
Right, and again, I was like, I was backed into a corner at this point because I'm like, this chick's just flipped out. You know, am I overreacting? Like, blah blah blah. And then I was like, that was so unnecessary for her to mention that. Like, the conversation didn't need to go from previous relationships that haven't worked out to a miscarriage. Like, it was just such an unnecessary escalation into her private stuff. Yeah. And I certainly wasn't prepared to hear that. Like, that was really confronting. And I just sort of said that, I was like, don't throw that in my face. Like, I've been through that too. Right? Like, I've lost a child as well in a relationship. Like, yes, it's different for the woman to the man, right? But I was like saying, like, don't like use that against me. I'm just here trying to get to know you, and you're throwing that in my face as like a weapon in the conversation. Yeah. It was really inappropriate. Yeah. So I gave her a blanket and like left her. I was like, the conversation wasn't going anywhere positive, and I said, look, if you want to talk, I'll be inside. I'll go inside and blah blah blah. Then we come to when we moved into Sky Suites and we had our balcony fight, and then I tried to bring her this. It's called the titty cake now. It was actually like a really pretty cupcake with like type thing. With a flower on it. The flower had like slipped off, and now it just looks like a titty. Anyway, and she goes, I was upset again, and you didn't check on me again. Like just the way she was talking is so Bronte. Yeah. And it's the reason I couldn't connect with her, because it was just always over dramatic and just I could just tell it was for television. You could never do anything right. No. And but the thing is, like, I checked on her. I did check on her. That was the biggest critique of me at the time, was that I'm not doing enough to make sure she's emotionally stable. Like, that's somehow my responsibility. And that's like bullshit. Like, I always was, coming to you and saying, are you okay? Like the balcony, there was a fight we had on the balcony, and I was the one to go and apologise to her. Yeah. This was not this wasn't the gaslighting text message incident, this was something else. And I was the one that I was like, shit, I'm in the wrong. Like, I should probably swallow my pride and go and talk to her. I was like, it was a conversation that never made it to camera. And I hugged her and I was like, I'm sorry. Well, I would never have made it to camera because it's you being human and saying sorry and showing empathy. So they would never show any of that. No. And I like hugged her. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, it's me. I'm sorry. And we went to bed that night and cuddled. Like, the relationship wasn't always all bad. No, it was a roller coaster. Yeah. It was a roller coaster. Yeah. Right. Definitely. But I always felt like I was on a roller coaster with someone that had unbuckled my harness. Do you know what I mean? I always felt like Bronte was sabotaging my experience on the show for her own gain. Like, why not at any point come clean about the fact that you were playing me? I think she tried to at the honeymoon. That's what that whole conversation about Brent and Tamara was, where she was like, we could just get through this to the end, they did it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that was so fake, and everyone knew it was fake, and they got ripped for it. Like, why would I want to fake? And I think from that point, she knew she could never really come clean to me about it. Yeah. Because I sort of didn't agree to that claim. I guess we'll never really know what went through her mind, or how she saw things, or what her perspective was. Well, she dropped a lot of interesting nuggets in her time in the media since, where she's talked about how production wanted this thing with me and Kira. And it's like, well, if you knew that, why didn't you tell me? We're supposed to be in a relationship. Even if we're in a fake relationship like you're trying to claim, wouldn't you fill me in on the act? Like, none of what she says makes sense. She says that we were walking one day in a vineyard at a winery, and I congratulated her on some acting to do with this fake relationship that we were supposedly in, and then she's just cracked it, right? And I'm like, well, if I'm congratulating you on your part of a fake relationship that you're also in, why would you get upset about that? Wouldn't that be a compliment? But none of her stories make sense. Like, nothing that she says actually makes sense. She can't make one cohesive argument. Everything's a contradiction. I'm honestly, like, I'm actually glad that it's on the internet that it exists now, because people can go and listen to it for themselves and realise what an unedited Bronte sounds like. I've unfortunately had to sit through it, and now I feel like I should sue for compensation for mental damages from having to listen to hours and hours of Bronte. Like, the relationship was bad enough. So yeah, like when I came to you with these issues and was like, this is what's happening, I kind of feel like you got an overview of the relationship, when it was good and it was bad. And I've waffled on for way too long, so I kind of want to hear, I guess, some thoughts and opinions from you about how that relationship was, especially from a third person. Because you saw you kind of got filled in on all of it that wasn't shown on television, right? What's your opinion on our relationship?
Well, like I said, it's a relationship in a pressure cooker. Because you've got cameras in your face, you're in an unnatural environment, you're then thrown into a whole lot of people that have a spyglass into it. You've then got experts who are sabotaging you. You've got producers who are sabotaging you. Like, you match from in different states. It was just never ever going to be successful. It was set up for failure from the beginning. And then there's the whole drama around Bronte discovering at the wedding that you'd been seeing this 21-year-old and supposedly knew all about that all along. So pretending to be shocked and pretending. So a relationship doesn't have any hope if the foundation of the relationship is built on dishonesty and mistrust.
That was my exact point.
Yeah.
Is how could I ever trust someone like that?
It doesn't have a hope in hell.
Right.
No relationship would.
Right.
So but I didn't know that at the time either.
No, neither of us did.
No.
I feel like the penny definitely dropped on why I was feeling that way.
You were intuitively feeling a lot of mistrust right from the beginning.
Yep.
You said to me very early on, I just don't trust Bronte, and because there was no reason to not trust her.
Right, at the time.
There was no evidence, and I would have been saying to you, I remember actually saying to you, because I remember talking to her a couple of times as well when you guys would ring, and you'd ring me, and I knew that she was really tired, like it would have taken a lot out of her. I know she didn't sleep well the night before the wedding, she was nervous, she was up all night, and when people are tired, they don't behave well. And so I just always was probably trying to make excuses or trying to go to bat for her or trying to find a reason for why she was behaving the way she was behaving. So I would probably be coming up with possibilities as to why. And I would have probably been relaying those to you. So yeah, I always try to imagine what it would be like to be in someone else's shoes. So I would imagine what it would be like to be in her shoes and then come back to you with possibilities of perhaps,
yeah, I got that vibe. Like you were playing the devil's advocate on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
No, I got that. Just a quick one. What is your impression or overview of my relationship now?
I don't really get to see a lot of it because we live in different states now. So
we lived in different states when I was on the phone to you about Bronte.
Yeah. But we haven't really talked much about your current relationship.
Okay, moving on. One thing
probably because it's not in conflict. You know what I mean? Like
It's
it's
much
new
healthier.
and it's
Yeah,
new. It's healthier.
I think that's where I was sort of.
And I think you've
before
grown
was,
a lot as a person too. You're probably answering a lot of your own questions now, rather than really needing or wanting to come to me for that kind of support.
I think the thing that I was hoping you would say for both of us is that the parts of the relationship you have seen, or how I talk about Gina to you. I guess I just wanted your opinion on how this relationship is in contrast to my last television relationship.
Well, you know my view of what I think of Gina. You know that I think she's amazing. She's just
well, you see the effort she puts.
She's a quality human being, absolute quality human being, and so I'm just thrilled that you've met somebody that I feel
And the thing is, I would say this to you as well. While I was on the show, is after Sophie, I realised I'm still attracted to what I'm attracted to. So looks are important, but I really wanted someone with good values and character because that was lacking in that relationship.
Well, you got the whole package with Gina.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, when I went into maths, the thing I said to the producers was, I want someone that's honest, that's loyal, that's got good character, good values, because those things were lacking in my relationship with Sophie. And so I really wanted that with the next person. And I really genuinely feel like the producers stitched me up and gave me a very, very, as close as they could, person to what I was saying were the reasons why it didn't work in my previous relationship. And they just dressed it up in a different outfit. Like Bronte was just a brunette version of Sophie in a lot of ways. Like the distance was never going to work. I didn't trust her. She had a lot of dishonest qualities. Some good qualities to Bronte. Like, I think she can be fun. I think she can be spontaneous, and I think she's.
You said that you felt that she was a very loving person. That she has a lot of love to give.
She runs really deep for her family. Yeah. But looking back now, it's almost in a codependent way, right? Like this whole notion that any guy that she gets with, her sister has to approve of. That's not a healthy relationship dynamic.
No, that's not.
Like, shouldn't it matter more what you approve of rather than what your sister approves of? Like, why does Kira?
Well, that was another reason why the relationship was doomed, was because you're in a relationship with two people, not just one.
Well, remember, I was in a relationship with two people, with Sophie, her and her mother.
Yeah.
I've never in all my life.
So that's been your pattern, like everybody has patterns that they follow until they discover that their patterns are unhealthy, and then they break the pattern, which is what you've done now.
Yeah. And the thing is, now I would set a boundary of, I don't want your family's input in a relationship unless it's positive. And I'll do the same with my family. Yeah. Like, could you imagine if we went to Noosa with Bronte and Mason sat there and attacked Bronte the way Kira was going me? For all of the things I told you guys. There's
no way that it would happen. Like the way that Kira spoke to you, which is the one thing that I have had something to say about, there's just no way in the world that any of our family would speak to Bronte like that, no matter what Bronte did.
I was giving a hypothetical. Could you imagine if my male brother...
That's what I'm saying.
Spoke to Bronte like that?
But us as a family...
No, we have way too much class.
We would never speak to a person, anybody like that, ever.
No. I never once spoke to anyone on the show the way Kira spoke to me.
No.
And I had way more reason to. Like, Kira was getting, like, snippets of our relationship from Bronte. Right? I actually lived in the same apartment complex, in the same hotel as the cast members, and I was directly involved in their relationship. I still never got involved in the way Kira did.
The disappointing thing for me with all of that too was that
just a quick side note, just before you just quickly, if you don't mind me jumping in quickly. Another thing was that I experienced Kira's overbearing contributions to our relationship the same way I experienced Sharon, Sophie's mother's contribution to our relationship. Whatever Sharon said, Sophie did. And I've never heard of someone's mother-in-law requesting to go through their bank accounts ever before in my life. Sharon wanted to go through my bank accounts because of the way I was paying off the engagement ring. Like, I've never heard of that before. Well, like, when you want to talk about overbearing family members in relationships, that is probably the unhealthiest boundary to cross. Is there's nothing wrong with family members giving their approval of your partner, right, or their thoughts. But when it starts crossing the line into actually going into the privacy of the relationship, and I think that's the thing that the line Kira crossed and the line Sharon crossed in my relationship, and then the family members still do. Like, those family members that I didn't get along with are now the ones sharing our intimate parenting details with the media, right? And they wonder why I never got along with them. Sophie wonders why I never got along with her family. Well, they're out there giving the media false statements, so much so that I had to serve Kieran with a cease and desist letter from my lawyer because he was trying to get false, slanderous information published in the Daily Mail. Yeah. And the only reason I came across that information was the good fortune of being friends with the editor and one of the journalists at the Daily Mail who sent me the messages. And I showed it to my lawyer and I said, there is absolutely no way this guy can provide evidence for this in court, what he is saying. And under my lawyer's guidance, we sent him a cease and desist.
It's just important to never stoop.
Why I never got along.
No, you never stoop and you never kick below the belt.
Yeah.
And I think, and the other thing is you just, it's never okay to be abusive. And the way that Kira spoke to you was abusive.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And I just think that that's not a good example to set for young women that are watching that show. And
Kira aren't good examples.
And that got celebrated. That was celebrated by the viewers.
Only by vapid morons. The only people that are cheering Kira on are like angry, feministic women. I haven't seen a single woman I respect think what Kira did was good.
No, I know. Well, certainly not my friends or my associates.
I haven't seen any woman that I respect come out and say, like, yeah, that was great. I see women trying to big that up. But the women I respect are going, Bronte was fake as hell and Kira was in on it.
But the season was very much about the women really emasculating the men, wasn't it? And celebrating that.
I just refused to let them do that to me.
Yeah.
And when they tried to, I just got up and walked away.
Good. I would never ever cheer on a woman that abuses a man or talks down to him or emasculates him. Like, it's just not. It's not what femininity is, and it's not what power to women is.
One of the biggest, cheer on a female moments of the season was Lyndall saying she didn't want to hear Cam's final vows because she felt like he was.
What was the response to that like?
She felt like he was just going to disappoint her again. That was her excuse. She want to hear it, right?
Yeah.
And women were like, "Yeah, girl, you deserve so much better."
Yeah.
I watched that and thought, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
You've been through all this.
Yeah.
In life, with your cystic fibrosis.
Yeah.
You've been through all this, adversity in your life, and you don't have the spine to stand there and listen to Cam's inner thoughts for 5 minutes. Been on a journey with him for 10, 12 weeks, right? You've been you've been the darling of the season, and you don't have the intestinal fortitude to stand there and hear a guy say he doesn't want to be with you and why for 5 minutes after you've just done that to him. That to me was the biggest act of cowardice I saw on maths. Right?
Yeah.
Way more. Like, when I got up and walked away from the table with Kira and Bronte, it was like having these two little hyenas yapping at me.
You did the right thing by getting up and walking away.
That's the show of strength.
Yeah. Absolutely.
A coward would have sat there and thrown his drink in her face.
Yeah, that's right.
Reached across the table and slapped her across the mouth.
Yeah.
That's what a coward would do. A weak man, a coward, would have gotten physical.
It takes strength to remove yourself from a situation when you know you're going to get triggered.
Yes. I swallowed my pride and I walked away.
Yeah.
That is a show of strength.
Yeah.
Anything less than that.
I agree.
It would have been easy for me to shout at her. Do you know how easy it would have been for me to tell Kira to shut the fuck up?
I know. You were very controlled in a lot of situations. You were very controlled. And back to the thing about Lyndall and Cam, like I just try not to judge any of the show because I know from what I watched and what I saw of you that we never get the full story. You know what I mean?
Well, I got the full story from Cam.
You know, because you know the inside.
And I watched them at the
You know the inside, yeah. But I watched things at the dinner table too. I watched you at the dinner table and saw things that I know weren't true.
Such as?
Well, the way it was edited. So, for example, it would show you smirking at somebody's...
I wasn't even looking at it, yeah.
Right, at someone's misfortune.
Yeah.
And that smirk was from a conversation 2 hours ago.
It was, you know what's funny? They couldn't hide some things in the edit. Some things in the edit they just couldn't hide, and they don't actually make sense to the storyline. So there's a scene where Taylor and Hugo walk back into the dinner party, and just for a split second, you can see Melinda, myself, and Jessie sitting at the table, sharing a laugh, having a drink together. And in that split second, you could almost undermine the entire storyline of the show with that one split second of editing fail.
Oh, look, you had the ability to destroy a relationship with one line of text. You know what I mean? The powers that they gave
what
you.
What kind of relationship gets destroyed by someone asking
the powers that they gave you in that show were just incredible.
See, this is the thing. This is why I'm being called the main character for season 10, right? This is the thing, is that the cast revolved around me on the show. Everyone on that show seems to at some point have revolved around me. Their storyline was intertwined with mine. Even down to the fact where Cam and Lyndall, who I always kind of thought as like kind of separate entities in the experiment, right? Like they were sort of like the quiet achievers, very similar to Tanya and Ollie. Like they never really, Lyndall got involved in everyone's gossip, but Cam always sat back at the dinner tables, never got involved. All of their fights were about him not wanting to get involved with all of this shit, right? Yeah. And even down to the fact that when Cam and Lyndall are having a disagreement at the table, it comes to me going, well, why can't you move, Lyndall? Right? Like, everyone's relationship seemed to revolve at some point around me. The couple swapping and then relating. I was put in the middle of it.
Because the experts referred to you as the grenade thrower. That you threw grenades. You threw grenades
said
into.
I was the most memorable as well. Like not just about throwing, like I prefer to call them dropping truth bombs.
Yeah.
But I think the producers knew that without me, they did not have a show this year. And so the entire show, for better or worse, seemed to revolve around me.
Mostly for worse.
Mostly for worse. But I agree with you. In that is a lot of power, right? To the point where I destroyed someone's relationship because I called them out for being fake. Yeah. I didn't. My intention wasn't to break Jessie and Claire up. It was simply just to bring to light Claire's behaviour, right? The way she was trying to do it to me. And that, I will always disagree, is a deflection. It's not. It's a mutual exchange, right? And I just had a bigger, better...
Well, it's called defending yourself as well. Like, everybody has the right to defend themselves.
I was just simply replying to Claire. Yeah. Am I not afforded the right to reply?
Of course you are.
Right. Well, Melinda seemed to get involved in my relationship from day one. Yeah. Why is she not being called out?
She was obsessed.
She was deflecting from her own relationship. Why is she not getting called out for that behaviour?
Well, the girls didn't get called out for anything.
At all. Ever. Always the guys. It was the year of the toxic male. And I was the toxic alpha male.
It was just season. Basically the Harrison fucks up show.
Yeah.
It's like, Dad and I mean, as you know, I've never watched it. I watched it 10 years ago, maybe a couple of shows, and it was quite sort of innocent back then. But I think it's evolved into this really toxic, triggering, just, it's really quite sinister, in my opinion. And it definitely triggers people, and it definitely generates a lot of hostility and hate and negativity.
When you commented on the show, like you've made a few things you've said a few things online that actually got picked up by the media, right? You've made comments online where you're sort of defending me.
Of course. Because I know who you are.
Yeah.
And the show didn't portray who you are.
Correct, yeah. So I saw you came quite hard for Bronte and Kira, mostly Kira, right?
Only for that one situation.
Only for that one situation.
Yeah.
What was it about that
And
situation?
the only other thing that I was disappointed about was the leaked messages where it becomes very clear that Bronte knew who you were.
And everything in the wedding was fake, basically.
Yeah.
See, the thing,
they're the two disappointments for
even
me.
if I grant Bronte the benefit of the doubt that when she walked down the aisle, her game plan went out the window, you see very clearly Jess say to her, "No, that's Harrison, that's the guy." So,
but the thing that's really interesting is all our phones were confiscated. Right?
No, the production set that up. But what I'm saying is that when Jess says to Bronte, "No, that's Harrison," like trying to trigger Bronte's memory, Bronte, I was told they shot that scene 6 separate times to get the biggest reaction they could from Bronte. Her first reaction could very well have been, "Oh yeah."
And then they coached her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to give Bronte the benefit of the doubt that her first reaction.
Well, then why didn't she tell you then? Why didn't she tell you?
Well, again, that's my problem.
Why didn't she come to you and say, "Hey, you won't believe what's just happened"?
That's my problem with her in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what a real relationship would do.
Correct.
That's what a real relationship would do.
She had every opportunity at
That's
every step of the way to go.
So she didn't trust you. She didn't trust you enough to be able to be honest.
She knew that after what she put me through at the wedding, if she ever came clean to me about the fact that she knew, that would be the end of the relationship.
Yeah.
I have enough integrity to just walk off.
Yeah.
Right? So she wasn't going to let the truth stop her time on the show.
Yeah.
Because she saw me calling everyone out for their shit.
Yeah.
And everyone trying to call me out for my shit.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing that bugs me about the experts and the premise of the show is, you know, they sort of, that even now, John Aiken's in the media going, "Oh, you know, we tried to hold Harrison accountable." Why didn't you hold fucking Claire accountable? She did far worse on the show. And you guys put the end of that relationship on Jesse and me. On me for saying it and Jesse for leaving. How fucking dare you sit there and bitch about accountability and you fucking let her off scot-free.
Yeah.
Like Jesse's got something wrong with him for not wanting to be with a chick who he didn't have any chemistry with and who cheated on him. And you want to sit there and act like you tried to, you know, your biggest thing this year, hurdle to overcome, was holding me accountable. For what? Being single before I met Bronte? I'd do it again. I would do it again.
And you know also, like, that the lifestyle that you had prior to going on maths is a lifestyle that, as your mum, was something that I was never really that thrilled about.
Well, you know, I think we always had a disagreement about your attitude was, and very much along the lines of Jordan Peterson's, which is clean up your room, clean up your act, and you'll attract someone of high value. And mine was, well, my room's tidy now, I'm going to go and bang a bunch of girls in it, and hopefully I'll meet the one that way. So we kind of had different visions on how that would.
But what I felt that you were living a very superficial life.
I was.
You know,
and One on Maths, the most superficial show on television.
Yeah.
But you a bunch of good-looking people in a room.
But you went on there with the right intentions. Like you said to me, okay, I don't have trouble finding girls to hang out with. You know, let's say it nicely. Bang. Don't have trouble finding girls to bang.
Yeah.
But I haven't found anyone that I want to be in a serious relationship with. So let's go and see who these experts match me with, and let's see what that's like.
No, I went on the show with authenticity.
Yeah.
My heart was open and my mind was open.
Yeah.
I went in there with a healthy amount of skepticism too, but I was always like open to the idea of meeting someone and falling in love, and like my heart was open and I was ready. I think maths to me was the stick in the sand saying, "This, I'm ready to fall in love again. I'm ready to meet someone again."
Yeah.
And it ironically took leaving the show in order for me to find that. I didn't find it on the show. Started to fall for Bronte. You know, I was falling for her, but it just never got across the line, and it never was going to, because you can't have a relationship without trust, and that's the one thing.
It's the foundation.
That's the one thing I have in my relationship now
Yeah.
is that I really, really, really trust this person.
Yeah.
And it's because the relationship, the media, all of the things that have tested this relationship have, in a sense, put it through its own pressure cooker.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have come through it with flying colours because we have each other's backs.
Yes.
And I do not ever think that the person I'm in a relationship with now has given me a reason not to trust her.
That's right.
If anything, Gina has been the one to hold me the most accountable out of any person I've ever been with. She's highly intelligent. She's fierce. She does not back down. And
she doesn't take shit.
No, she does not. And I respect the absolute hell out of her.
And you need that. You need that.
She has on multiple occasions held me accountable for things. And I've had to go, okay, shit, if I want to be with this person, this high value person, I need to meet this level.
Do you think that I've held you accountable for behaviour in your life?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I do feel like you've held me accountable. Have I listened is a different story, right? Like you said, I don't agree with this. In a way, you tried to hold me accountable, and I've said, well, I don't care, I'm going to go have fun and do what I'm doing. Yeah. So, I mean,
do you think raising you though, like, was I quite a authoritative sort of parent?
Well, I mean, you've turned out three functioning, can stand on their own 2 feet, take the punches life throws at them. You've turned out 3 boys that can deal with adversity, you know, are willing to roll with the punches. I just look at us 3 boys. I look at us 3 boys objectively. Even if I look at your other 2 sons to get even more objective, and I see confident young men taking on the world in whatever they're passionate about. You know, they have their own interests. They're polite. They're caring.
They're well received by people.
Yeah, so I see...
liked.
Yeah. So I see the outcome of it. And I just think that, you've done well as parents. And the funny thing is, like, I heard on some podcast, it was Dom and Ella who did a podcast where they talked about Mason. And someone stopped him in the street and said, oh, you know, if you think Harrison's bad, you should see his brother or some shit. And I just think, like, what fuckwit said that? Right? Like, every dickhead and his dog comes out of the woodwork to talk shit about someone that's on television. Doesn't matter if you're a footballer or a fucking radio personality or someone that does the morning news or on maths. Every dickhead and their dog wants to come out and go, yeah, I know, he's a fuckwit.
Yeah.
Like, every fucking idiot that wants their 5 minutes of notoriety says that. Mason's a lovely kid, right? He's what, 29 now? Nearly 30, right? Running a business, right? He's got a passion for music. He's about to open a bar in Noosa. The kid's doing well in life. I respect him. Everyone loves him. So one fuckwit on the street trying to get his story out there and put shit on someone doesn't mean fuck all.
I've tried to live my life with integrity and ethics and values and be an honourable person, but there's still people out there that would come out of the woodwork and say that I'm a total bitch.
Oh, there's people that
because you're going to have conflict with people no matter how well you try to live your life.
There's people that you've been in. So this is the one thing I've noticed, right? There's people that you've been in business with, and I know that those business dealings have gone south for one reason or another. Not something you've done, but those people would come out. Right? If you were famous, those people would come out and they'd say, I did X, Y, Z with Noni, and she did X, Y, Z to me, and I'm now worse off for having dealt with Noni Boon, right? And the thing is then, do you spend all your time putting out these fires where you go around and then like defend yourself to every jab you get? That's the question I've had to ask myself is like I don't give a fuck anymore about what people write about me online, articles that come out, I don't care. I've had like numerous shitty articles written about me that I thought verge on the point of slander. Yeah. Right? But the thing that I do care about is ex-partners, people in the media coming out and slandering me. Because I feel like that's a much bigger platform. Like that podcast Sophie did, all I have to do is release our court documents, our original agreement that she never stuck to, where I was paying double the required child support, right? She tried to extort me for more money, using my son as leverage, right? All I have to do is show the screenshots of that stuff.
Yeah.
Put that online.
You don't want to though, like it's airing dirty laundry, like I've said to you, like it's just there's no value in that.
What about if I posted up what Kieran sent to the Daily Mail?
It was horrible, but again, they're people that you've had conflict with.
That's what I'm saying. I know. You spend all your time, right, defending this shit. Yeah. Or you move on with your life.
You have to move on with your life. You know, there's always going to be people that love you and people that hate you, no matter what you do. No matter what you do.
It's like the first line I said on the show.
Yeah.
I'll be loved and I'll probably be hated.
Yeah.
People don't like, not everyone has taste.
It's just we didn't realise it was going to sway so much toward the hate.
Look, they have to have a villain for every season.
We were hoping 50-50. We got like 90-10.
They have to have a villain for every season.
Maybe 95-5.
One thing I will say
is... 99-1.
Yeah. One thing I will say is that the guidance you've given me has been great, is the fact that you can't spend all your time stewing on this. And now, if anything is quite bad, I'll just send it through to my lawyer. Like, I'd rather pay him $1,000 to send a letter and sleep at night than be kept up wondering how this is going to turn out. And look, who knows? One day I might do an Instagram live or a TikTok live where I show all of the documents that prove that everything Sophie said was a lie. One day I might do an Instagram.
You don't need
live.
to do that. Like that's the thing. Like you just don't need to defend yourself against accusations that aren't true.
No, but that's the problem though. Is like I care about the truth. You've seen it, right?
But like I said to you, it only matters what we know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter what people who don't care for you know or think they know.
Yeah, no, I get that. But what I'm saying is when you're on TV, you have a profile now. All of these dickheads come out of the woodwork to try and tear you down. Like tall poppy syndrome.
They do it to every actress and actor and celebrity out there.
Some people on Facebook are out there with like shears, and then people like Sophie and Bronte, well, they've got like fucking...
What did Kyle say to you when you went on Kyle and Jackie O show? Kyle said to you to just... You cannot care about what people say or think about you.
No, what I'm saying is there are some people that when they come for you with this negative bullshit, they do a lot more damage than the general public. Right? Like for August now, I don't want to say anything bad about Sophie. I simply said facts that happened in our relationship and why it shaped me into the person that I was.
You didn't mention her name. You didn't mention your son's name.
No.
You didn't mention their location.
No.
You didn't say anything. All you said was you had come out of a relationship where the person had cheated.
Yes.
You didn't mention which relationship. Could have been a relationship.
Could have been 10 girls ago.
Right. But it triggered a response.
Yeah.
And what she did out of anger.
Out of spite, yeah.
And I think she probably maybe regrets it, maybe partially regrets it. I don't know.
She regrets it. She tried to get me, of all people, to help her take it down.
Okay. Yeah. And look, it's heartbreaking. I mean, for me as...
Imagine slandering someone on a podcast and then asking for their help to get it taken down.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking to hear that, and it's heartbreaking that was done. And unfortunately, there is a parasite person that gave that platform, and somebody who thrives on trashy news items and gossip.
That same person now is trying to talk to Shannon, who was on the show's ex, about a baby she's currently carrying. And the details around her pregnancy to do with Shannon. The person that you're referring to is Megan Picetto from So Dramatic.
I don't know who it is, but I just...
She is the lowest flog in Australian media.
Look, she's a woman. She's a woman making a living, darling, and people sometimes have horrible jobs, and that's
I get people have a business to run, but like, how many previous cast members have come out and said Megan slandered me, Megan's so this, Megan's done that? Like, how many previous cast members are going to come out and say...
It's the flavour of her work, you know, the flavour of what she does, and it's just, and the audience that she attracts are people that thrive on that kind of gossip and nonsense.
They're all like low IQ, angry people.
Yeah.
I've never had any of her listeners come to me with anything beyond a vapid, vacuous comment about the show or about what they've heard on the podcast. And they take everything they hear on the podcast as gospel.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, actually do some critical thinking. Like, do you really think I just suddenly stopped paying Sophie the amount of child support we agreed to because August needed floaties? Like, seriously, do some fucking, like, do beyond a minute of thinking.
Look, we're a family that looks after our family, and that little boy will always be provided for and looked after.
I went and bought August a $3,000 motorbike. So I could ride
again,
around with him at the
we
park.
don't need to justify anything.
No, I'm not justifying. I'm just thinking, like do you really think that I cared about $50?
I know.
Like, the fact that
that little boy will never go without anything.
The fact that these people think that what happens on that podcast are actually is gospel is beyond for me.
You heard an ex-partner basically just saying things to be spiteful because she was hurt. Hurt people.
Yeah.
So that's
but
what
see,
that
the thing
was.
is, I never said anything about Sophie that wasn't true. And she's come out and said things that aren't true about me.
Yeah.
Same with Bronte. Like,
a lot of people will bend and twist the truth to suit their argument, and that's just what people do.
But I never said anything about Bronte that's not true. I've never said anything about Bronte that's not true. I've never made up a conversation that didn't happen like she has. I've never sex shamed her like she has. I've never like, I could sit on this podcast and give every gory detail about our relationship and totally smash Bronte. Right? But what good would that do?
None.
I could sit on this podcast and give
it would actually make you look bad.
Well, exactly. And that's why she's looking bad now. Right? It's because I'm not stooping to that level.
Yeah.
She is.
Yeah.
I could go on this podcast and give every gory detail about my relationship with Sophie, the other guy she slept with, all that stuff. Right? I could give the timeline. It wasn't 2 weeks, I can guarantee you that. I could give all of those details. I could smash her. What good would it do? What good would it do to attack the mother of my child? Like, the thing is, there is a huge difference, in fact, in between saying what happened in a relationship and giving your version of events and just talking about the facts, right? There's a huge difference between that and actually having the intention to attack someone and lying about it in order to do it, right? Like, the truth needs to have its day. And the truth is far more entertaining than the fiction that people come up with to try and make the truth sound better, right? Like, she monkey branched me, right? I went on her computer, sent an email, Instagram icon popped up, saw all the messages to a high school boyfriend that have history. Yeah, she slept with him 2 weeks after we split up, but she was talking to him long before that happened. Yeah. She was lining him up while we were in a relationship.
But as you know, nobody cheats out of a happy relationship. You know?
That's correct.
And we've always spoken about that.
Exactly. So now we go into why was that relationship
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to. Like, we
exactly.
don't want to talk about that. That's your private. And I've always said to you, like, keep your private business private.
Yes.
No good will come of speaking about it.
Which is why I'm protecting the relationship I'm in now. Yeah. I don't really want to go into details about things other than the fact that we're really happy and that I do trust her, because I don't want to tarnish the relationship I have now with all of the shit that's happened in the past, right? But the thing is, I have been mistreated in relationships. That's why I had trust issues.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm finally in a place where I feel comfortable enough to talk about that. You know, I've Bronte coming out with this domestic violence bullshit. Well, I'm comfortable enough to say I've been in a domestic violence.
That's just ridiculous, though. I mean,
okay.
The things that are being said.
Let me finish my point. Bronte coming out and saying that shit affects me now, because looking back in my relationship history, I've been in a domestic violence relationship. Right? I've had stuff happen where I've had to take out maybe on someone. Right? Like, there's things that have happened in my life that have led me to conclude the fact that I've been quite unlucky in love, as much as I've been open to it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I've been in relationships with people that, like, it's funny, Melinda, of all people, said to me, "Oh, if this doesn't work out with Bronte, you're fucked." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "She's the type. She'll fight dirty." Oh, yeah. And I didn't really catch on to what she was talking about at the time, but the evidence is there now. Yeah. Like, I've actually, like, for her to claim that I was ever domestically abusive to her,
it's a kick below the belt.
It's a complete disservice to actual victims.
Yeah, I I know. It's crossing a line. It's
Massively.
just not what you do.
Does she not realise that could affect my current relationship?
Yeah, I know. And I mean, the reality is that there's just no way in the world that the network would have put up with that sort of behaviour on set.
They've kicked people off that show for less.
Yeah, I know.
They sent Caitlin.
Which is why people with a brain would just know straight away that that's
the
just
beautiful thing.
fabricated.
That's the beautiful thing. Is like 10%. Like So Dramatics listeners, like the people that want that to be true, are the only people that actually give a fuck.
Yeah.
Everyone else with half
it's a very
a
small percentage of the population.
That bullshit.
Exactly.
Because the thing is, right, there's more evidence for the fact that I fat shamed Bronte than there is for these two bodyguards that had to walk her around wherever she went. She cared more about a comment I made where we were both, the actual conversation was that we were both letting ourselves go because of the filming schedule. Had nothing to do with the fact that Bronte wasn't going to the gym or anything like that. I never fat shamed her. We actually had quite a jovial back and forth discussion. Yeah. We were both laughing about the fact that we lost our abs.
Yeah.
Right? Because when we came in, we both had abs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was never fat shaming to begin with. But the second thing was, there's more evidence for that conversation that happened. Yeah. Than there is for these fucking bodyguards.
These supposed bodyguards.
These supposed producers or security personnel or whatever it happened to be, because she was fearing for her life or some shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's more evidence for a cupcake and her losing her abs and her vanity than there is for her in a domestic violence situation. So I just feel like that there's a lack of evidence in the fact that people just roll their eyes whenever she opens her mouth now. And in a sense, I've won. I lost the battle on maths, but I won the war against Bronte, like the war of credibility. And same with Sophie. Like, I think people will listen to this and go, here's a guy who spoke facts on why his relationship didn't work out, what drove him to single life, and then what was the direction coming into maths and why I was the way that I was. Here's a guy that's sticking to the facts, not throwing shade on someone. And then his ex has come out and just fucking thrown him through the mud to try and make herself look better. And in retaliation to that, I'm going to do the respectful thing and keep quiet. Like, there's details that I've kind of like gone into here. But I'm not giving oversharing. I'm not giving evidence. Just talking about it. And Sophie knows if I ever released documents and screenshots and videos and all the stuff that I've got on her, like, she wouldn't be welcome back in the town she's in. You know what I mean? If people saw her true colours, what she's put me through over the last couple of years, which is the whole purpose of starting this podcast. That's what
people do in conflict, particularly in divorce. You know, and what you went through was like a divorce.
Like, look at August now.
They use them as weapons.
Look at August now. He's being raised in a single mother household, 5 hours away from his dad. Right? Anyone that thinks that's acceptable or okay are out of their fucking minds. Or anyone that thinks that the onus
ultimately children with a two-parent family is ultimately
statistically they do better in life than single mother households. And anyone that thinks that the onus should be on one parent to make that relationship meaningful with a child is also out of their fucking minds. And anyone that's been supporting that I've seen online, usually young single people without kids, anyone that's been through what I've been through in life sees the situation for what it really is and how tough it is. And they're supportive.
I think decent women that care about their children and can put their children's needs above their own bitterness.
Their own egos,
will make sure that the children, if the father is a decent human being, will make sure that the children have as much access to that man as possible.
Well, Sophie said something interesting in the podcast. She's like, Harrison can come and visit anytime he likes. I've never withheld August from Harrison. Well, Sophie,
he just happens to be 5 hours away.
You got in your car and drove into a town where I have no friends or family. Completely isolating him from his father. And then you've got like this open door policy. Well, that's great. It costs me money to drive out there. I have to stay. It costs me money. I have to buy food and all this stuff. That I've got no accommodation. My time off work. I leave. Every month when I drive out there to see my son, I take a day off work to do the driving. Then I lose a day coming back. Right. So like the financial burden of making those trips to see August is so cumbersome. And her sitting there pretending like this open door policy somehow benefits him is a joke. How about living? Right? Like Sophie could have easily stayed in Sydney. Right? We made the decision to move together everywhere we went.
Mm.
I moved to Forbes to try and foster that relationship because she was carrying my child at the time. I self-isolated myself in Forbes from my friends, my family, my career, everything I'd ever known and loved, to be with Sophie. You know, and then that awful situation happened with the petrol where I ran out of fuel in my car and I borrowed some from something I shouldn't have taken it from just to get back to town to fill my car up. There's a whole thing there.
Which you returned?
Yeah, I returned it. But like obviously taking it in the first place was wrong. What was I supposed to do? Walk 40 kilometres back to town?
You told me that you looked around. I mean, you looked around for somebody to ask. There was nobody there. You borrowed some fuel, a small tank of fuel to get you to a petrol station, which you then filled up and returned.
Look, I shouldn't have touched it because it belonged to the farm. It was outside the scope of our access, right? Like we're building a property on the farm. The farm equipment's not available to the staff working on the property. And I should never have touched it. It didn't belong to us. It wasn't for me to use. Yes, I was desperate. Yes, I was in a place where I needed to get to town. My mistake was doing that, right? And I returned it the next day. Yeah. But that's not the point. The point is I shouldn't have accessed it, right? But the whole reason I was in that position in the first place is because I was out there. August had just been born. And the reason I was trying to work on that in the middle of nowhere on that property was because it was the only job for hundreds of miles. And I was trying to make a relationship with Sophie work. Right? Like, so I think anyone in their right mind would forgive a guy for trying to make a go of it in a new town with a newborn. You know, like I was there purely for that relationship, nothing else. Yeah. And when we went to Shell Cove, Sophie never really unpacked her bags, like mentally. She never did the same thing. She never found a new job. She never contributed anything to the relationship. She never paid any bills.
Again, it was a relationship that was only meant for a certain period of time because they're two mismatched people.
Look, I don't regret it.
You weren't the right match.
I don't regret it.
Yeah.
It led me to where I am in life now.
Exactly.
Right? But again, like this idea, this notion that she has some open door policy and that she's never taken August away from me. Well, we lived there for more than 6 months in Shell Cove. That was our fixed address. That was our family home. August took his first steps in that house. Right? That was an established place, a residence for us to live with our son. Yeah. Her deciding to take August from that house and bring him to Forbes, right, to live with her and her family, that is taking a child away from its father. Yeah. So trying to pretend like that didn't happen is absurd. And then trying to pretend like, oh, I've got this open door policy, he can visit whenever he likes. It's like, well, can I? Great. I can drive 5 hours in the middle of nowhere to visit my son. Thanks for that. Yeah. What a great policy that is.
I think generally speaking, men are disadvantaged in divorce when children are involved.
Well, I'm about to have a guest tomorrow night who's going to tell one hell of a story about disadvantaged in the court system. 2 special needs kids left on the side of the road. His wife just dumped them, or ex-partner just dumped them on the side of the road and had to go pick them up. And now he's struggling through. Women that have children don't really go homeless. Like the government has, plans in place and opportunities for single mothers with children. They get found a place to live very quickly. This guy, on the other hand, not so lucky. It's taken months in and out of hotels, things like that. So
I think it's going to be great to see these stories be heard, and
no one else is doing it.
And you providing a platform for people to tell their story, and it's relatable to a lot of people.
Is that, to your point, is that women are actually incentivized to leave a relationship. They have a fallback within the government system where the housing is provided, wages are provided via Centrelink, the children are put in school and provided for. Like women are actually incentivized to leave relationships financially. Men are heavily disadvantaged by that system. And it's really sad. And I saw it in my own relationship. The first thing Sophie did was put her hand out for money. After we we split.
Mm.
She goes back into a free house that her parents bought her, driving around in a car her parents bought her, working in a business her parents paid for, putting a hand out for money from me. Which I'm happy to provide, like it goes to August, it's not an issue. But I just think her trying to pretend like she, you know, she was heavily incentivized by her family to leave that relationship. That's the core reason why it didn't work out.
And you were heavily encouraged by your family to stay in that relationship and make it work.
Correct. And that it breaks my fucking heart to hear her speak about a relationship the way she does, where I feel like I bent over backwards and broke myself in half to make that relationship work. All the while, like, she used the fact that I was struggling and worked for someone I shouldn't have worked for as an excuse to leave me. Oh, who am I with? Sophie, you're with the guy that's keeping the fucking roof over your head.
Well, again, it's being with a partner that doesn't back you. You know, you need to be with a partner who backs you and supports you.
Yes. And
who is just there as your equal, your support. You need that support from your partner.
I've never felt...
If you don't have support...
I've never felt more supported than the relationship I'm in now.
Which is fantastic. Which is why it's just so different, so unique, and already set up for success. Like, and will be successful.
We're now making plans. We're travelling 3 times this year and then planning a trip to Europe next year. And I just never had that in any of my previous relationships. Like all of the women I've had in previous relationships were never goal orientated. They were never like, let's set this goal and then work towards it together to achieve it.
Well, the relationships that don't work are to teach you what doesn't work and what you do
exactly why I value it in this relationship.
Yeah.
It's exactly why I value what I have now.
Yeah.
It's because I realised what the other side of the coin is.
What was missing. Yeah.
And the other side of the coin was like me always creating the plans, me always financing everything. I don't have that issue now.
And the important thing, I think, looking back, is to not harbour resentment toward your ex-partners, and to just love them and move on.
Well, that's
just
the thing.
Bless them, love them, move on.
I don't resent Sophie, even for what she's put me through. It's like the problem, and I've said this to you many times. It's like I get to the point where I've forgiven her.
Yeah.
And then she'll do something else to get in between me and August.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the one off the top of my head, just for example, was when COVID was happening and, you know, they were shutting down parts of Sydney or whatever. And it was Sophie's turn to drive down. So, you know, once a month we do the swap. And she was saying, I don't want to come to Sydney. I can't stay in Sydney because, you know, of COVID. And I said, well, if you bring August down this weekend, because it was her weekend to drive down, I said, I'll get you a 5-star hotel anywhere you like. I'll pay for it for the weekend. Just bring my son down. And she's like, okay. So I paid for the hotel room, sent her the booking, and last minute pulled out. Said, I'm not doing it. I'll meet you halfway. At the time, like that seemed quite reasonable. But at the time, a halfway meant that I had to take half a day off work to drive out halfway. Then, so that's still 5 hours driving halfway back.
Yeah.
Then I'm out of pocket for a hotel. And the thing is, when you book a hotel, and you try and cancel the booking, they don't refund your money. They keep a portion of it. So now I'm down hundreds of dollars out of, I think it was like $1,500 or something to book the hotel room. Just off the top of my head, don't quote me on the figure. It was something like that. And then now I'm down hundreds of dollars and a half day off work. So that's cost me potentially $1,000 now to meet you halfway when the deal is. And the original deal, this is the thing that people say, you shouldn't share the driving or whatever. The original deal was that I would drive to Orange twice a month. So Sophie would only have to drive an hour. I drive 4 hours. I meet her in Orange. So I loved it. I loved Orange. I love Orange, the town. It's beautiful. Heaps of things for August to do. Shops there. Can take you to the park. There's this big play park in Orange. August loves it. Right? I like Orange. It's neutral ground for both of us. It's a big enough little town that I sort of don't feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere. I can, duck down to Boost Juice or, duck down to the shops. I loved it there. The one that changed the agreement was Sophie. And Sophie was getting paid double the required amount of child support. The one who went to child support was Sophie. Threatened me with money, and then when I went through the legal channels, then she tried to say, "Oh, I'm not bringing August to see you anymore." I'm just so over being mistreated in relationships, and I got that. I got the same thing with Bronte in her relationship. Her and her sister were just at times unbearable, and it was really unfair, And I really struggled with that. I really struggled with the relationships I've been through and how I've been really kind of abused by women in the past. And so I value what I have now, and I'm going to really nurture it and love it with both hands. Make a real go of it, because I know what's waiting for me on the other side if it fails. And I don't want to be with these duds anymore. I've been there and done that. I've been with women with no ambition. I've been with women that put their hand out for everything. I've been with women that don't make goals, don't have any real direction in life, are just sort of like getting through. Or women that are codependent on their families. Like I don't want to be with these people. They're not mature. They're not good enough anymore. Once you've been with better, you want better.
Yeah, and that's fair enough, and that's what process we all go through. Otherwise we'd, if past partners were the right partners, we'd still be with them. Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
I think it's just important, I think, with everything to just be as loving as possible. And that's one thing, I don't really like talking about your past partners, and particularly the mother of my grandchild. But I will say one thing, and that is that no matter what happens and no matter what gets said or no matter how things go, I will always love her. She'll always have a place in my heart, because she is the mother of my grandchild and she's the mother of your child. And I know that she'll always have a place in your heart as well.
Yeah,
and quite often,
I was going to say, I'll always love Sophie.
Yeah,
and that's Bronte can say whatever she likes. Sophie hurt me the most.
Yeah,
what she was saying about our relationship.
Yeah, of course.
I would have liked that.
Listening to that for me was one of the most depressing things that I've ever had to sit through.
Why?
Because I know that a lot of it wasn't accurate, and also I just felt like it was, just even our conversation talking about it, it just you come away from it just not feeling good.
I felt really flat listening to it.
Yeah,
and just really hurt by her again. Just the lying. That's the thing. Just tell the truth. Just say it how it is. Anyone in their right mind knew it was bullshit. Right? I'm gonna go back on our agreement to do with child support because of some floaties in a pool. That story doesn't even make sense.
But I think that's the thing, is people just sort of cherry pick out of the facts.
I'm cherry picking now
what suits,
what she said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is, at least I know what happened. And I've got all of the documents.
The thing is, you don't have to convince anybody who you are. You have to know who you are.
Well, that's the hard thing. Is imagine if a group of people had the wrong impression of you. How hard would it be to not set the record straight when you have the evidence?
I think the thing that's hard, and probably why you want to defend yourself a lot as well, is because in that situation when you went to the Royal Easter Show and you and Dan were screamed at by somebody in the public.
Oh, that wasn't Dan. That wasn't actually at me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So even just that situation, it's just...
I was stood next to Dan when it happened.
It's unfair. It's unfair that people out there don't know you, don't know the cast, and just form opinions to the point where they become so resolved in it that it actually really triggers an emotional response in them. And that's really frightening to think that actually happens, that there's people out there whose lives are so small that they invest so much energy into something like that. That I find that really quite worrying for our society, for people in our society. I think that they must be very lonely as well, which I think is really sad.
Well, that woman wasn't lonely. She had 4 kids around her.
Yeah, but you can be lonely in a group of people.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I think they're just that woman was really the epitome of what I talk about when I talk about the type of people that believe in reality TV.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She was actually the human embodiment of everything that I would imagine
They don't
internet
think
troll,
critically.
Would look like.
Yeah.
Picture an internet troll, and then you're probably on the money for what this appeared to be.
Yeah.
And just really kind of a redneck. Who in front of 4 children starts using the C word?
Yeah.
Yeah, in front of her own kids.
Yeah.
And to someone she doesn't even know.
Yeah,
I know. Example you said.
I know. And
And
that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that there's people out there that are like that, I find really quite concerning. And that shows like that are targeting those people and generating that sort of response. I find that really quite sad. And then obviously, when people that we know and love go out and do things like that, do interviews and write letters in and
that's funny.
Disappointing.
I had Olivia from season 9 here the other night, and one thing we finished on was, if you want to get through to us as people, say something positive. I remember all the positive things.
Yeah, of course.
I don't remember any of the negative stuff.
Yeah, same. Like, so many people have written some beautiful things to me about you and about us and about my parenting and everything. There's been some amazing and really beautiful people reach out. I'm so grateful for that, because they're the people that just give me hope for humanity.
Probably a good note to end on.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's go get a steak.
Let's go get dinner. Okay.